Hey guys, it's Deacon Matt. Yesterday I talked to you about the importance of establishing a good regular routine in your life, just as a good way to bring order into your life. And this is good for not only bringing you peace of mind, but peace of spirit and in growing in holiness. But what happens when you can't do the things that you've set out for yourself to do as part of your daily routine, as part of your daily responsibilities, through situations that are outside of your control? You're just not able to do these good things that you'd like to do. So let's say you've set as a goal for yourself that you're going to go running every morning as a way to stay in shape and get yourself some exercise. That's a great thing, right? That's a good goal. But it's been raining for the past 4 days and you haven't been able to do that. Or let's say you have, you're trying to be very attentive to your academic studies and your classes, and you've got this paper that you're working on, and it's due at the end of the day today, and you intend to finish it and get it in time, but then the internet goes out and you're not able to upload your assignment to your professor, even if you wanted to. Or what happens when you want to be, more regular about going to Mass, to go and participate at Mass more frequently, and then all of a sudden there's a viral outbreak and public Masses are canceled and you're not able to go to Mass, right? These things happen that are outside of our control and keep us from doing a lot of the things that we rely on that bring order and routine and regularity to our lives. What do we do? How do we respond? Well, here I think we can also take inspiration from the monks, and specifically the rule of Saint Benedict. And in fact, there's a particular rule that I'll mention to you that speaks just to this. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit more about the way that the Benedictine monks order their day. The most important part of their routine was their routine of prayer, the divine office. I also spoke last week about the Liturgy of the Hours as being that daily, ongoing liturgical prayer of the Church. That Liturgy of the Office, it's also called the Divine, or the Liturgy of the Hours, is also called the Divine Office, and that is the backbone of the monastic life. So if you read over the rule of Saint Benedict, a great amount of that is spent on how it is that the monks are going to pray their office. It's the most important part of their day. They call it the work of God. It's the most significant thing that they do. So what happens when a monk is away from the monastery and is not able to join with them in community to do the work of God, to pray the office, the Liturgy of the Hours? Right? It doesn't happen very frequently because another aspect of that monastic life is stability. They're expected to be stable, to be in their place. But sometimes a monk does have to travel and leave the monastery. What does he do? Right? He still wants to do that work of God, that daily routine of prayer that he has promised himself to do. But how can he do that when he's not, with the monks? And to understand why that's a problem, right? So if I want to pray the Liturgy of the Hours today, I've got my breviary, right here, and it's great. And so if I'm going to be traveling, I just throw it in my bag, take it with me. It's very easily accessible. And that's why I recommended the Liturgy of the Hours last week as a form of the liturgy of the Church that you can participate in, even from your homes. And I can download the app on my smartphone now and stick it in my pocket, and I can have the entire Divine Office with me wherever I go. But 1,000 years ago, that wasn't the case. Before the printing press, this was not very easy to come by. A single book like this would be just outrageously expensive. And so as monks, especially taking a vow of poverty, wouldn't be able to have a book that would have all of the Psalms and their daily prayers in it. So the way that they would come together and pray is they would gather in an oratory, which is it's like a chapel. It's a place dedicated for prayer. And they would have a single psalter or breviary, a single prayer book that was very large, so that all of the monks, all of that monastic community could gather together around that one book and pray together. And in fact, I have a page from one such book, and this is actually a pretty small example of one. I've seen them that were much bigger than this, and it would have the Psalms that they would chant, right? So they all relied on that one book that they would chant together. So when a monk was traveling and not able to be back in the monastery to pray with his community, that was a real impediment to him to be able to pray his office. So what was he expected to do? Well, the rule of Saint Benedict mentions this. This is chapter 50. And chapter sounds lofty, that they're like short little paragraphs. Chapter 50 deals with brethren who work at a long distance from the oratory or who are on a journey. It says, the brethren who work at a great distance and cannot come to the oratory at the appointed time, in cases where the abbot has made a careful determination that this is in fact the situation. So in other words, it's not an ordinary thing that they're going to be this far away from the oratory. They should perform the work of God, their prayers, where they are working, and to do so on bended knee with a godly fear. In like manner, let those who are sent on a journey not allow the appointed hours to pass by, but let them say the office by themselves as best they can, and not neglect the duty of divine service. So let's say that again, right? If you're away from the monastery, if you're traveling, you're not there with the community, you cannot neglect the duty of divine service, but you are to say the office by yourself as best you can at the appointed hour. And that's another thing too, right? The bells of the monastery would ring to summon all the monks in when it was time to pray, because the other thing that they didn't have, in addition to smartphones and printed, breviaries, they didn't have watches. So, they didn't know when it was 3 p.m. They could guess. They knew when it was about the middle of the afternoon, but they didn't know when it was 3 p.m. on the nose. And so if they're not in the presence of the monastery and they can't hear those bells ringing, right, they might have to just guess. But what the rule is saying is, do the best you can. Do the best you can. Do what you can as best you can. So as close to the appointed hour as you could, say your prayer, say your office as best you could. Now, maybe you had those Psalms memorized and you can say it to a large extent from memory. Great, do that. But maybe you don't have those prayers memorized, but yet you know that you should pray at this appointed time. Well, say what part of the prayers you can remember, and otherwise just make some good prayer, right? Pray in Our Father, pray a Hail Mary, pray the divine praises, pray whatever you could remember, but just pray, because you still have that divine duty that you shouldn't neglect. Do what you can as best you can. And that's a good maxim for us to all keep in mind whenever we're prohibited from carrying out our own duties, whatever they might be. If I said I wanted to go running every morning to get in more exercise, but it's been raining all week and I'm stuck inside, well, if I want to, make that goal of exercising more, what can I do? Right? I can do some push-ups or sit-ups here in the house, right? I can run in place, do some jumping jacks, whatever. I can do what I can as best I can. If I can't submit that paper to my professor in time because the internet is down, what can I do? I still need to be attentive to my studies, so I can't let that be an excuse not to study. So I still study, I still do the work. Is there a way I can reach my professor and let him know the situation, right? Can I email him? Well, no, because the internet's down, so scratch that. Can I call him? Can I call him on the phone, right? Most professors will let you know their office number or something. But do what you can as best you can. If you can't get to Mass on Sunday to worship because of the coronavirus outbreak, you still have that divine duty to keep Sunday as a day of prayer. So do what you can as best you can. Maybe that's watching a liturgy live streamed on your computer and prayerfully participating in that. Maybe that's doing a liturgy of the word at home with yourself or with your family. Maybe that's doing some Lectio Divina with the scripture readings for that Sunday. But do what you can as best you can. Okay, whatever the situation is, don't let obstacles that are out of your control prevent you from feeling like you're able to carry out that duty that you have, right? Understanding that you might not be able to do it the way that you ordinarily would or the way that you would like to. Okay? Don't let these obstacles be an excuse to give up or not do these important things, but do what you can as best you can and don't feel guilty about it. A lesson from the monks. Praise be Jesus Christ.